just we're gonna start soon. We're giving Sulaiman a little bit of time right now to fuel up, eat some jollof rice. What's your thought on the jollof rice and chicken?
It's good. You see, I clearly like it. While you guys are, anytime I get, you can see on the video, I've been crushing the rice. I'm gonna get to this chicken too, but I'm not gonna be messy on the video.
Right.
So this idea of talent pipeline engineer, can you talk to us about what that phrase means to be a talent pipeline engineer?
Yeah. So what is it?
Yeah. So we talk a lot about kind of the talent pipeline, a pipeline of people who are prepared for opportunities. And I'm a person that puts, I'm very mission driven. So a lot of ways you can make money, but one of the things that I believe my life that I've been put on the earth to do is to create opportunities. And I kind of look at it, and I've been pitching this from the boards I serve on and major leaders in the city, that we need to look at, especially from a black and brown folk perspective, is the whole talent continuum, from cradle to C-suite. And there's defining moments throughout that whole process, from early learning, preparing kids for school. Like, this is there's a lot of research around it. I didn't know this early on, how much research there is around, what happens with kids before they're 8 years old will determine a lot of their trajectory moving forward. Reading by 3rd grade. So what can we do to make sure our young kids are reading by 3rd grade? What can we do to make sure they're graduating from, they're actually math proficient by 6th grade? What do we do to make sure they're starting to understand what career they want to get into in high school through mentors and role models and possibility models? So by the time they graduate from high school, they're prepared and going into college and not wasting time. Their 3rd year, they're still they're undecided. You don't want to go in last thing you want to do is go into a 6-figure investment undecided. So understanding what you want to do and what you're going to use with that degree going into it, and then having internships throughout that process so that you can get off to a great start in your career. I'm not anti-job. I think that is a great part of the process early on, to learn from others and develop those skill sets. So, with your career, advancing in your career, and down the line you can decide to become an entrepreneur, you can become an entrepreneur within those organizations and make change. What I find is that professionals, we tell people to go to school, get good grades, go into college and get a good job, and we think that just because our young black kids are getting into college, or they got accepted to a college, that they've made it. And now we're going back again. But they don't realize that many people are going to college and not completing. And now they're worse off than they were when they stepped into the university. So making sure they graduate with the right degrees, make sure they have the right internships so that they can maximize the return on investment on their graduate. And then what happens is we turn our young black and brown folks over to companies for their continued personal professional development, and they've done a bad job of doing so. They don't have the aspirational cultural capital to navigate young black professionals. And that's where DiverseForce comes in. We say, listen, give us the opportunity to influence our black and brown folks around what's next and how to get to the next level. Because performance is not enough. You're going to take, the reason why leadership diversity tapers off in the middle of organizations is because, one, the organizations are just not mindful around diversity. So we want to create an inclusive ecosystem that is thinking about how they're going to advance their talent to create the right environment, but also equip our folks with the right skills and navigational skills to take agency for themselves to also advance as well. And so mentorship at that level, you're seeing black and, let's talk about African Americans, they're unemployed and underemployed at a disproportionate rate, 2 times that of white folks in these scenarios. So we want to make sure that that pipeline, which has leaks, gaping holes and blockage all throughout, let's clean it out, let's fix it, let's engineer a pipeline that our young people can actually see themselves in the C-suite. They can see themselves as a president. Barack Obama was more important as a role model, a possibility model than anything. And how do we make sure we normalize black leadership? So that's so my goal is we work more in the middle of the organization because I believe there's an aspiration gap. If young people don't see themselves in leadership, if they don't see their uncles, aunts, friends, people, who do the right thing and succeed, why do you want to be that? Otherwise, rap, trap, all the other things that in ball, that's where they end up. That's where they see the success.
Right.
They don't see us professionals in suits but broke. They see us, see us in suits but not achieving where. So we got to help folks to achieve in business, entertainment, all different sectors.
Yeah.
So now we have the possibility models that young people now want to aspire to follow your footprint. And we also need to make sure that we build a strong pipeline for it. Because right now we got, 4 CEOs of a Fortune 500 company?
Yeah.
We're not serving on boards. So my goal is to help people get there, but also for them to now leverage that aspirational capital to help young people to be in their lives, to mentor them, to show them that, hey, there's a better way, and help them navigate to get there as well. So I think the top of that funnel is one of the most important things because people got to believe. Yeah. You say young people if they can't see it, they can't believe it. Yeah. So my goal is to help us get that last mile and then make sure that we can then be role models for young people. First, it starts with belief, but then it also needs to make sure that the pipeline, that the possibility for them to get there is not, they got to jump all kinds of hurdles, but instead there's a clear runway for them to be successful. So
something that has come up in our past talks is, this idea of like when you go to college, for instance, like a lot of us are going to college, we're taking out all these loans, but there isn't a why. It's just like you got to go to college because that's going to lead to the success. And so something I hear with this idea of from cradle to the C-suite, and it's like having a pipeline. It's like also moving with more, having whys for what you're doing. I'm going to college, for X, and then I'm taking these internships to lead to to this next stage that's gonna do Y. Because a lot of people will graduate, a lot of people won't graduate, but then a lot of people will even graduate with top degrees and still have trouble finding jobs and have trouble like making their way. And then you'll see a lot of people who maybe didn't even do any of those things and are soaring. So.
I think
it's understanding the system that we're in. Yeah.
But it's also like understanding the opportunities that are available to you, right? It's really about being aware of the vision. Where do you see yourself? And I love the idea of like DiverseForce because it's creating this pathway to let people know like we're not going to tell you like this is what you want to become, but we're giving you at least like a template or like some sort of like an idea of like there's an opportunity here for you. So Sulaiman, how can folks sort of become part of DiverseForce? Are you doing this through companies, or are you also having opportunity for people to be part of this?
And can you also just give a brief little info on exactly what DiverseForce is and does?
Yeah. So DiverseForce is the evolution of our professional network, UPPN, which still exists. We haven't been doing very active. We used to do obviously after work events, and so we're pivoting that as well. But UPPN.com, you have opportunity to kind of at least add yourself to the subscriber list there, which will be part of our email database. But then we started DiverseForce because we wanted to build. So in my evolution, I realized when I was a party promoter, no one on the business side knew who I was. I was popular amongst black folks, like everyone, in the city, like urban Philly, but no business folks in the city where the opportunities existed knew. When I became became a convener, then the opportunities, the companies started knowing, and organizations that wanted to utilize this convening knew who we were, but then I was also getting can you hook me up all the time? Like, hey, can you just promote this? And hey, tell us who you know. But I realized there was a lot of that these are companies out there that were getting paid for doing the same thing. So we need to position ourselves as a company that provided solutions with the talent community, and DiverseForce became a human capital solutions firm to help companies with recruitment, retention, development of talent, and also creating those opportunities for so what we want to do is we want to engage, empower, and connect our network but I want the companies to pay for it. So and I know it's an opportunity, is actually a value proposition on both sides. So we find that medium where we can continue to empower Black and brown folks, but have companies pay for it. And when they pay for it, they see more value in it too. So to have, our board program, it's our DiverseForce on board. We partner with University of Penn. It's a 6-month board training program for mid to senior level professionals of color. So our goal is to get them on governing boards, organizations that have $1 million or more as far as their budget. Many people think that nonprofits are these small, struggling organizations, but here in Philadelphia, 8 out of the top 10 employers are nonprofits. University of Pennsylvania, hospitals are nonprofits, universities are nonprofits. You got these major multi-million dollars nonprofits. So nonprofit is a misnomer. It's a non-distribution of profit. It's a tax code. It's a mission-based organization, but they can still make profit. They just don't pay out dividends and things of that sort. So there's tons of jobs. There's tons of contracts and things and billions of dollars that are flowing through nonprofit organizations that we're not participating in. But many times we are the communities they're on a fix. To the profiting off of our pain, but we're not in the leadership, we're not on the board helping make decisions. So the reality is we created a program that Black and brown folks can now be in a boardroom to help around policy, mission, programming, make sure that organizations are holding them accountable to making sure that supplier diversity, businesses are getting opportunities, people are being hired. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is being institutionalized. Our goal is not to just put Black and brown faces in high places, but for their presence to be felt throughout the organization.
It's also like not only creating that, but it's about impact, right? Also making sure these companies are making the right impact in the community that they serve.
That's right.
And I just think that's the most powerful part of DiverseForce. And I just personally want to thank you for creating this opportunity, because it is so important, especially given what's going on right now. So a major shout out to you, Sulaiman.
I appreciate that. And I want to pause real quickly because I want to make sure we hit two sides of that. One is we need to be there to make impact. Two, it's also a great opportunity for professionals.
We need to be there. What do you mean by there? Like what?
We need to be in the room helping to fill some of the blind spots in the boardrooms. I sit on some major boards, collectively. The boards I serve on do over $500 million a year in revenue. Thousands of employees, between community college and Kimmel and different organizations that Mastery Charter with 25 schools throughout the city. Sometimes they don't have the same lens that we can have as far as the employees, and so the CEO or the executive director reports to a board. So the CEO is basically the one employee of the board. So you as a board have the opportunity to say, who's the CEO? You hire them, you fire them if necessary, you give them a performance review, and that person is the person who's responsible for sometimes hundreds or thousands of employees. So the board has a lot of power of where the direction of that organization. But also the person sitting on the board as a Black and brown professional is not enough to perform. That's what I saw. We did a lot of events. Until I sat on the board for the African American Chamber of Commerce and realized the exposure that they had and the relationships they had with corporations, although we had a bigger network and reach, and I brought some of that to the chamber at that time, I didn't realize the importance of the exposure, being in the room with CEOs, so that they know who you are. Same thing in your company. You can be performing, but if your leadership, if your executive leaders don't know who you are, if you haven't built a brand or exposure to them, you just working to help promote someone else.
So now on that page about companies, because diversity and inclusion is something that is starting to be talked about more, especially with companies, and you're seeing some companies, they're hiring, say, chief diversity officer, or they're creating these different initiatives, and it seems like the different approaches that companies are taking, some of them may be more successful, some of them may not be, but in your opinion and based on your experience, what do you think companies really need to do in order to improve diversity and inclusion?
They need to know how to do it. Because what's happened is at the top of the organizations, the CEOs, they're realizing that it's not just a nice thing to do anymore, it's a business imperative. And it's for a number of reasons. Population change, seismic demographic shifts. 44% of millennials are people of color.
That's right.
The next generation, Z, is 51%. So their workforce, half their workforce is going to be, in order for them to grow and scale, they got to do that. Their consumer base is diversifying. So they can't build a big organization here globally, and even globally, without being more diverse than they have been. So CEOs are seeing it. Also, it's things called ESG, environmental, social, and global. Or governance decides where capital is going, how much capital is. Like the capital markets, like BlackRock and these different firms that are investing in companies and evaluating firms are depending based on how they're doing environmentally, how they're doing socially with like diversity, equity, inclusion, and things of that sort, and then governance, diversity on their boards and things of that sort. So they're getting the pressure from the top. Companies or this this administration federally is just a whole different story. But external organizations, before they're doing business with companies, big major companies are saying, what's your diversity with your so the top is seeing, and that's why you're seeing these big commitments and they're speaking about it. But diversity, good intention at the top, it dies in the middle. The middle of the organization, they don't understand why these CEOs are talking, and sometimes they'll follow the lead of them, but you got to be able to institutionalize it in a very systematic way. So that's where we come in from a consulting standpoint. How do you institutionalize it? Help your board and your leadership understand the value proposition and understand what you need to do from a policy perspective and leadership perspective to make sure that it permeates throughout your organization. How do you change the culture and the organizational? How do you count your talent management from recruitment, retention, development? So we go in helping organizations from that perspective and have subject matter experts. Supplier diversity. Why is it important to have diverse suppliers? And who's holding you accountable to that? There's companies there's government entities and institutions that hold you accountable to your supplier base and having a pipeline, using companies like a industry to make sure they have capital to be able to do. So we go in. So they need to know how to do it better. Many of them are not implementing, and obviously there's still that cognitive dissonance. Some are just doing it to check the box, and they thought for a while they can just be performative about it and just act like they're doing it. But now kind of this racial reckoning and organizations are calling folks out, more. You're seeing, and that's why, again, and that's the beautiful thing about serving these boards. You see a lot of research. You see a lot, and people pay millions of dollars for research. At the board level, you get access to it. You see what's happening in the organizations, the educational system, all the things that we're hearing and stuff, they already know it's not leading the right way and where we need to go. So you got to be at the front, so be at the table, because if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu, so it's important that you're there. But also the education.
You're on the menu.
Yeah, so it's a lot.
Because again, this topic of diversity and inclusion that again, it's coming up more and more, and more companies are doing it, or at least taking action, but they might not be taking the right action, and so something that I've been thinking about, and we've Sekou and Toby, we've talked about culture, and we know that culture usually starts at when it starts from the identity of the people who are building the company, and so I imagine how you go about changing or improving diversity and inclusion for, let's say, a smaller company where it's maybe more malleable, that more adaptable would be different than from, let's say, a Fortune 500 company. So for a larger company, are you saying that it's through the board, starting with the board, and then being able to tweak, maybe the CEO needs to be fired, or because I think sometimes you have people in these executive positions who they might be the ones who are really the issue, but then you don't have on the mid-level and other levels of the company, you don't really have maybe as much authority, so those executive positions, executives just continue doing, operating how they do.
That's a great
Can
question.
Can that be changed, or is
I always say diversity starts in the boardroom, because the boardroom is where you decide your mission, your vision, and more importantly, your values. Your values is how you achieve it. And how you achieve it is going to incorporate social responsibility. It's going to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the values have to be from the top, where the influence is at, the authority is at, to potentially add policy where your CEO or your executives, their performance review is based on how well they do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you gotta bake it into the infrastructure of the organization, and then once structurally you're in place, you still got work to do to change the mindset as well. I always look at 3 stages: people, culture, and structure. So one, on the individual level, people gotta understand inherently why this is good for me. What's in it for you? It's WIIFM. So how people, and that's where trainings, many people do trainings and they don't do it in a way, and that's, again, I learned in network marketing because it's performance based. You can't just pontificate on stage and say things and get claps and make money, because you can still be broke if you don't change behaviors. So I realized that there's people, culture, structure was critical. So I got to make sure that people understand why it's good for them first. So you got to instill and be able to speak their language. Once they believe it and believe it's good for them, you got to give them the ability to do it. Because if you can believe it and want to do it but don't know how to do it. So let's give you some practical things. Like you might want to work out. You're like, man, I'm ready to go, but what do I do? All right, let me give you some practical things that you can do with what you have. Then it's cultural. Your environment is stronger than your will sometimes. So that's why it's important to have mastermind group of people. Sometimes you're like, man, I want to do it. I know how to do it. Now it's good to have a group of people that hold you accountable to it. People that you trust, that you respect, an audience, and if even as a bigger audience that you can be rewarded for and recognized for, and an audience of people that you feel like is your tribe. And again, network marketing, we did that well. People would be excited about a pen. It's not the value of the pen, it's what the pen represents. And a tribe of people that they respect and what that pen represents within that audience. So again, when you build culture, you build relationships, you build trust and belonging, and then drive the right behaviors, reward the right behaviors. And sometimes you gotta also penalize the wrong behaviors, okay? And then we talked about structure, make sure that the policies, procedures, the leadership has things in place that rewards and reinforces those behaviors as well. So what happens is sometimes you got the motivation of the people, you got the culture within the organization, but then the leadership is different and they're not even rewarding or even recognizing. You may be an ERG leader, and the company, your manager's like, I wish you just get back to work. You trying to be Martin Luther King for the organization. I don't see value in that. So you got to say, listen, this ERG leader should be potentially compensated, or they should at least be part of their 25% of their job and rewarded and promoted for the work they're doing, because we value that within the organization. So the structure has to also reinforce the belief in culture as well.
And those are we're going to take some time to reflect on all these knowledge and gems that you're dropping right now, but it's just everything has to be connected. Sometimes you get companies or organizations, even schools, where everyone feel like they're in their own tunnel. Everyone feel like I'm just going to play my part. No, you have to understand your part is part of something bigger right here. So everyone has to see the bigger picture. Everyone has to see the vision. And even the board members, they not only have to have a seat at the table, Sulaiman, like you said, but they also have to have their eyes and ear on the ground. And I think this is where sometimes things go south. Because just because you feel like you're at the top, I just feel like I just have to make decisions. If your decisions are not based on what is happening on the ground, then you're not really creating a culture where that is inclusive, where people feel like they care, where there's a value, right? You create values by really paying attention to all these 3 components that Sulaiman has named. So again,
and to your point, and that's and I've had the fortune of kind of going from all throughout that whole continuum, now being at the leadership and governance level, and to your point, everyone's working in silos. everyone's not connecting the dots. And again, that engineer in me,
I think it was Steve Jobs named that. It's about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was part of our conversation yesterday too, right? And this is what we talk about. Sometimes people think that what's happening, like there's a lot going on, in Africa right now. You know. But part of what's going on in Africa is also being influenced about the social turmoil that's going on in the West right now, especially in the U.S. So there's always some sort of connection and correlation going on. But it's really all about paying attention to what's going on and not get stuck into your own bubble, but seeing other people's bubble. And how do you do that? You really have to. It's a simple things, right? You got to check in with people. You got to pay attention. You got to read. You got to know, like, read different sources that's different from what you're reading all the time.
And that's where we're working with this developer, Mosaic. We helped kind of promote this kind of community and moving into the Germantown. You know, it's the top of the year. We're opening up. We're calling the P4 Hub. And to your point, everyone's working in silos. And I see all these silos: education and business and nonprofit. So the P4 Hub is a public, private, and philanthropic partnership hub. So we want to try to pull these pieces together around racial equity and developing our talent where again, we've turned it over to industry to grow our next generation of leaders. We want to have more of an opportunity to have these institutions that say they want to support, to invest and allow us to help grow these networks of talent that we've been cultivating and building relationships for years. So for me, it's a.
And this P4 Hub is this a space in? You said it's in Germantown.
So it's inside the Galaski Labs.
Okay.
So we have 11,000 square feet there. So we're anchor tenant. So we're building out the 4,000 of that now for event space and some of the things we're doing. We're calling it co-learning, co-working, co-impacting space. For us to be able to do a lot of our DiverseForce programming, but also be able to reach to, right now we're kind of in the higher tier professionals, to be able to reach down within those tiers that are emerging to those levels, again, further down that pipeline, if you will, where we can do leadership training, talk on innovation and opportunities that are existing, financial literacy, connecting with folks like you, buying homes and building wealth and entrepreneurship. So having curriculum around those things within this vicinity. So obviously COVID threw things off a bit, but we're pivoting.
I know you and I have spoken a little bit about the P4 Hub in the past. For people who are who are tuning in right now, if they want to learn more about the P4 Hub and what's going on with it, how can they?
Yeah, we haven't gone public yet with it, but DiverseForce. If you go to DiverseForce on boards, you're interested in our board program. They'll be the first ones will unveil and create curriculum around those who are part of that, those who are interested in serving on boards. So we'll kind of have a tiers to it, like young professionals, leaders, and we're calling trustees, kind of our alumni network of folks who are now serving on 90 different boards across the city in just 3 years. So this collective of folks who are sitting in the room helping make decisions, coming together collectively, in which we haven't even harnessed that power yet, and what that means for our community as a whole.
It is. I just wanted to pivot to those who join us. Thank you so much for sticking with us. For all of you, there's some people who actually been online with us this whole time, and I just want to give a shout out to these people. Michael, Adu, Peace, Noni. If I don't name you, it doesn't mean like I'm not giving you love or showing you love. But I want to personally thank you for being part of this conversation. We know you could be doing anything right now. It is Saturday. You could be turning up or being with your friend, but you decided to spend your Saturday with us to make sure we continue to really make this space of the Pepper Soup Talk more impactful. It is 5:33. Sulaiman, we want to be mindful of your time too. I think at this point we should just get close to the home stretch here and close this out. But again, I can't thank you enough for being here with us and sharing all these gems and knowledge with us. Just to close out, Keith, you want to?
Maybe just this question for most of the folks who are not tuned in are they're earlier in their careers. So like for young people out here, what advice do you have as far as how to move forward in achieving your goals and arriving at success?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one, so Harvey Coleman wrote a book called Empowering Yourself back years ago. He talks about 3 stages. I mean, three areas of success. It's performance, it's image building, and there's exposure. And at the beginning of your career, performance matters. Like performance can help you to kind of get things done, build a brand that you get things done, but there's a diminishing value to that. Eventually, you got to build your image. You should be doing it throughout, but also exposure to others. And that's where mentorship and sponsorship comes in. So identifying mentors, people who will also vouch for you, who would sponsor you in the room, will talk about you. So that's critical, especially if you're working within traditional companies. But then even outside of that, the same thing. I went through it. Performance wasn't enough. We were performing, but we didn't build our image and exposure to the right people for the opportunities to present it as well to the decision maker. So I found that through a hack of serving on boards, and being around and just performing and showing up and being my best self, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's important that you do show up, that you be on brand, that you be consistent, and then opportunities start presenting themselves, So that's the key thing, making sure that you show up, learn your craft, do that, that's table stakes, but also be mindful about networking, building, understand who you are, who you're gonna be, and the people that will help you to get to where you need to get to, you'll attract them to you, but being authentic to that throughout that process and position yourself to be exposed to the right people that can then champion for you. So again, and growing up, sometimes I didn't keep the relationships with some people who reached down to me and were showing signs that they wanted to support me and help me. And I was always just moving and and didn't realize that how important that is. So it's important to build those relationships. When you don't just jump out there, hey, will you be my mentor, my sponsor? Get some advice, read the book, and say, after I read it, would you mind if I just follow back up with you? So I'm building that relationship because, folks who are successful, they love to see younger folks who are ambitious that do what they said, because we're always throwing stuff out there. We're just seeing who actually bites. And actually, then it's like a checkerboard, man. It's like, oh, this person's different. So I've talked to hundreds of people. No one came back saying, I read the book. Would you mind discussing it with me? Now they're like, okay, I got someone that, because a lot of opportunities come their way. Eventually they're throwing it to someone else, but they're throwing it to people they trust. That's not going to embarrass them in those positions. And so we started, because I got a lot of board opportunities initially. The reason why we started the board program because I knew a lot of people, but I didn't know if I could trust sponsoring them into opportunities. Because I see you at a party all the time or at an after work event, I don't know how you show up. And I was recommending people that didn't show up. They're like, yeah, you recommended, but they never came to a board meeting.
Yeah, wow. It's all about showing up. Honestly, and that's what I always tell, I'm in education. And sometimes I think I got to question myself, like, whether I'm making the right impact. But I do have to say myself, as long as I'm showing up for our kids, then I'm making a difference. You got to show up, and sometimes that makes all the difference. Sulaiman, you are like a game changer in our Black and brown community, and I know a lot of people, you're someone who's sort of like behind the scene, but your impact is literally louder based on all these things that you're doing, and I know a lot of people don't see that. We really appreciate you, and I know we had a lot of sort of profound, deep conversation today. Can you give us anything about we're still going through the pandemics, things are still difficult. This is a very crazy time right now in this country. So what are some things that you do just to keep yourself afloat? Just to keep going through these difficult times.
Yeah, and early on I learned, he said, life is basically 10% of what happens to us, 90% of how we react to it. So only thing we can control is our emotions and how we feel about things. the same wind's gonna blow on all of us. Jim Rohn said the same wind blows on all of us. Is how you set your sail will determine where you are later. So it's important to be intentional about how you set your sail. Although the same wind's gonna blow on us, how you set your sail is gonna determine where you are after this circumstance. So don't, so keep your head up, be positive, look at the silver lining, the opportunities, because the only way you're gonna really maximize your opportunities is being in the best state of mind and the best, environment, create an environment you create within yourself to take advantage of it. So trust that, what you're going through, and some people are going through some really tough circumstances, but I encourage you to just find that faith. And that was one of the things that I was able to hold on to when I was going through some of the toughest times. And, I went through some really bad financial circumstances, but I didn't let it identify who I was. And faith, and I learned this early because I went through some times when I was in college, and I realized that when I was positive and just believed, things would always come through. Like, people call it the universe, whatever you want. I call it God would always look out for me because I believed and I had faith. So I say believe through these things and just have the faith, substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Visualize where you want to be and just know and start working towards it. And you'll go through your challenges, but just know that your tests are just your testimony. So once you get through it, everyone hears the story, but they don't know, they hear your glory, but don't know the story that you went through. And many times what you're going through is just basically the opportunity for you to inspire other people. So the struggles you're going through now is going to be basically a blessing to someone else when you're on the other side of it. So we need you to get through it and to win, because then you'll impact thousands of others and potentially millions.
I think right now it's really what a lot of us need to hear right now. So for me, I personally moved to hear that from you, just because right now, because the struggle is real.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. Like not knowing where, going through, and I've gone through it, And the biggest thing is just again faith, and know that sometimes you're being carved into who you need to be. That pressure, that heat and pressure, is what creates diamonds. So embrace the learning experiences you're going through. And eventually, you're on the other side, you'll be a stronger person. Say that which does not kill you only makes you stronger.
Right. It's like also embrace this time right now. Embrace this challenging time. Embrace this moment that we're going through. Right. Excellent. I think we.
I think we definitely want to let everyone get on with their day. We hope you got a lot of value out of this conversation. Thank you, Sulaiman, for coming on.
Thank you for the meal.
It's your wealth of knowledge and wisdom. So it feels like we just mine like diamonds just now. And so we're very grateful that you're able to sit down with us. And for everyone on chat, stay tuned for the next Pepper Soup Talk. We're coming at you soon.
Sounds great. Good to see everyone on there online. And thanks, guys. Take care.
And we get some positive feedback. So. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.